Chet, if you're watching this, if his family is watching this, Victor Wembanyama doesn't like you.
Why does Wemby hate Chet?
Man, World Games, man.
The Wemby and Chet beef is starting to feel very real. And if you've been watching closely, you already know this goes way deeper than two 7-footers trading buckets on a random NBA night. What started as a media-driven comparison between two freakishly talented young big men has slowly turned into one of the league's most interesting individual rivalries. Every matchup feels heavier now. Every block, every stare, every missed shot, and every carefully worded post-game answer gets picked apart like there's something personal hiding underneath it. But here's what a lot of people are sleeping on. Whatever competitive tension exists between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren didn't suddenly appear when they reached the NBA. Their history goes back years before either one had played a professional NBA minute to an international showdown that plenty of casual fans probably forgot even happened. And once you know that backstory, some of these Wemby Chet battles start hitting completely different. There's one moment in particular that helps explain why every time these two share the floor, it feels slightly bigger than a regular basketball game. It happened before the NBA hype machine fully got involved, and it gave both players a competitive memory they would carry into the next stage of their careers.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's always about us trying to win the basketball game.
Tim Reynolds? No.
Sorry, I lost somebody.
First, you have to understand just how unusual these two players are. Victor Wembanyama isn't built like a normal basketball player, and that isn't some wild internet exaggeration. Coaches, scouts, former players, and analysts have spent years trying to explain what makes him different, because basketball simply hasn't seen many players with his combination of size and skill. Wemby stands around 7'4", owns a massive wingspan, and somehow moves with the smoothness of somebody much smaller. He can pull up from outside, pass from the post, bring the ball up in transition, and create shots in ways that look crazy for somebody that tall. On defense, his reach changes everything. Shots that look wide open can suddenly get erased because Wemby can cover ridiculous amounts of space around the rim. So when San Antonio took him first overall in the 2023 NBA draft, it didn't feel like an ordinary #1 pick. The whole thing had generational prospect energy. The expectations weren't simply high, they were historic. But Chet Holmgren wasn't some random big man standing in Wemby's shadow either. By any reasonable basketball standard, Chet was already an elite young prospect with a rare skill set of his own. Oklahoma City selected Holmgren second overall in the 2022 NBA draft after his season at Gonzaga, where he showed exactly why scouts were so intrigued. At over 7 feet, Chet could knock down outside shots, protect the rim with timing instead of just raw strength, and move the ball within an advanced offense. He wasn't simply a shot blocker or a stretch big, his game had layers. Then his NBA story took a brutal detour. Before playing his first regular season game, Holmgren suffered a Lisfranc foot injury and missed the entire 2022-23 season. That changed everything about how his rookie story would eventually unfold. When Chet finally debuted during the 2023-24 season, guess who was entering the league at the exact same time? Wembanyama, the #1 pick from the following draft class. Suddenly, two players who technically came from different drafts were fighting for attention on the same rookie stage. Every basketball show, podcast, highlight account, and debate segment had an easy comparison sitting right there. Wemby versus Chet. Their builds were unusual. Their games were versatile. Their defensive impact was obvious. The comparison basically wrote itself. But what made this matchup especially spicy had nothing to do with NBA draft positions or television debates. These dudes already had history. You have to go back to Latvia in the summer of 2021. Before the Rookie of the Year conversations, before NBA highlight battles, and before millions of fans started comparing them every week, Holmgren and Wembanyama met in the 2021 FIBA Under-19 World Cup Final in Riga. And that championship game gave this future NBA rivalry its real backstory. Wembanyama Only 17 at the time went crazy on the court. He finished the championship game with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and an unbelievable 8 blocks. 8 blocks in one final. On one of the biggest international stages available to players that age, Wemby was showing exactly why scouts were already fascinated by him. His size, timing, and defensive reach looked completely different from almost everybody else on the floor. Then came the moment that changed the whole game. With 2 minutes and 42 seconds remaining and France still having a legitimate chance to win, Wembanyama fouled out. Just like that, he was done. He had to leave the floor, sit on the bench, and watch the final minutes unfold without being able to do anything about it. The United States escaped with an 83-81 victory. Holmgren finished the championship game with 10 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists. But when the entire tournament was finished, Chet was the one holding the MVP trophy, rewarded for his overall contribution throughout an undefeated American run. Wembanyama made the all-tournament team, recognizing just how dominant he had been. But Chet had the MVP, and Team USA had the championship. Think about that competitive contrast. Wemby had just delivered 22 points and 8 blocks in the final, yet he left Latvia with a runner-up medal, while Holmgren and the Americans celebrated the title. For an ultra-competitive player, that type of memory can stick around. And this is where their history gets even more interesting. Before they became NBA rivals on paper, Holmgren had already spoken about Wembanyama with genuine respect. He once said he did not look up to many people literally, but Wembanyama was one of them. That line hits differently when you know what happened next. That was the dynamic going into the 2021 final. Holmgren knew exactly who Wembanyama was. He respected his talent and had been watching what he was doing overseas. Then Chet's team beat France on the biggest stage, and Holmgren left the tournament with the MVP award. That's one heck of a starting point for 2 elite competitors who would eventually find themselves battling for NBA attention. And Wembanyama didn't simply erase that night from his memory. He has described the 2021 defeat as one of the most painful basketball memories of his career. The foul trouble, being stuck on the bench, and having to watch the other side celebrate while he couldn't get back onto the court, that kind of competitive scar can stay fresh for years. For somebody wired like Wembanyama, the calendar changing doesn't automatically wipe away a moment like that. It gets stored, it sticks around. And when the moment comes, that competitive memory can hit all over again. 5 years later, with Wembanyama standing across from Holmgren in the Western Conference Finals, FIBA reporting directly connected that painful 2021 defeat to the mentality Wemby carried into the series. That old international battle wasn't just some forgotten youth tournament anymore. It had become part of the bigger story surrounding these two. But before all that NBA drama could fully explode, there was another international chapter. The 2024 Paris Olympics added even more weight to Wembanyama's competitive history with American basketball. Wemby led France all the way to the gold medal game against the United States, dropping 26 points and 7 rebounds in the loss. Holmgren wasn't on that Olympic roster, so this wasn't a direct battle between them, but the pattern was hard to miss. First came the 2021 U19 World Cup final. Then came the 2024 Olympic final. 2 massive international stages. 2 painful losses against American competition. For a player who clearly remembers competitive setbacks, those moments weren't exactly disappearing from the mental file. Once Wembanyama and Holmgren were both in the NBA, though, the comparison machine went absolutely crazy. Then Wemby won the 2023-24 Rookie of the Year award unanimously. Not barely. Not after some dramatic voting battle. Unanimously. Every first place vote went his way. Holmgren finished second, and that was still a legit reflection of how impressive he had been during his official rookie season. But the gap between first and second was about as clear as it gets. Wembanyama was stuffing the stat sheet across points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks in ways that made his rookie campaign feel historic. When voting time arrived, there wasn't much suspense. And once the trophy was secured, Wembanyama seemed ready to leave that rookie debate behind. He had pulled away in the award race, and from an individual accolade standpoint, the Wemby versus Chet argument suddenly looked pretty one-sided. But that's where the easy narrative starts falling apart. Because when these two actually met during some early regular season games, Holmgren wasn't simply getting cooked every night. In one early 2024-25 matchup, Chet finished with 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, while Wembanyama was held to only 6 points. Those were exactly the performances Chet supporters grabbed onto. Their argument was simple. Maybe the gap between these two wasn't nearly as massive as the louder NBA conversations made it sound. And heading into the 2025-26 season, their regular season head-to-head record sat at 3-3, not 6-0, not some total demolition, 3 wins apiece. That matters because this rivalry wasn't being built around Holmgren looking completely helpless against Wemby. The real spice came from somewhere else. The comments, the reactions, and the little moments whenever cameras started rolling. Then December 2025 took things to another level. After San Antonio beat Oklahoma City for the second time in 11 days, with Wembanyama getting the better of Holmgren in both games, a reporter directly asked Wemby about their supposed rivalry. His answer hit hard. He said, and these are his exact words, that he did not think about it, and that at least from a basketball standpoint, there was no comparison between them. No comparison between them. That wasn't your typical safe NBA answer. Wembanyama wasn't feeding reporters some generic line about respecting everybody and focusing on the next game. His words were widely interpreted as him saying the comparison itself didn't make basketball sense. Whether fans saw that as confidence or disrespect, the reaction came fast. Even Dirk Nowitzki jumped into the conversation. Dirk publicly said he didn't love Wembanyama's answer about Holmgren and wished Wemby had given Chet more credit. His exact phrase was that it was too swaggy, too dismissive. When somebody as respected as Dirk is questioning the delivery, you already know the comment made serious noise, and Wembanyama's comments kept getting dissected. After San Antonio defeated Oklahoma City in the NBA Cup final during that same stretch, Wemby praised the Spurs for playing what he called pure ethical basketball. He also said that some players are built for high leverage moments, while others are not. He never named Holmgren. But fans and media quickly connected the comments to the growing rivalry. Whether Chet was specifically the target is something only Wembanyama could fully confirm. But in the middle of all that tension, people definitely weren't treating those words like some random basketball observation. Then came an even sharper basketball argument. Wembanyama publicly suggested that Holmgren's production benefits heavily from playing beside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because opposing defenses are forced to pour so much attention into stopping Shai. In other words, Chet can sometimes operate with less defensive pressure because teams have an MVP-level superstar demanding their focus. That was a serious shot at one of the biggest arguments supporting Holmgren's numbers. The implication was that Chet's production couldn't be judged without considering the massive advantage of sharing the floor with Shai. Instead of simply debating who had better stats, Wembanyama was questioning the environment helping create those stats. And that's why the comment landed so differently. On the surface, it sounded like basketball analysis. Underneath it, fans heard something much more disrespectful, Wemby appearing to question how much of Chet's success truly belonged to Chet himself. That's the type of statement that can turn a normal comparison into something way more personal. Then there's the free throw stuff, and this wasn't presented as just one isolated moment. NBA broadcasts have shown compilation footage of Wembanyama clapping and visibly celebrating during moments when Holmgren missed important free throws. That caught people's attention for obvious reasons. One reaction can be brushed off as normal competition, but when broadcasts start putting multiple clips together, fans naturally start wondering whether there's a pattern. Every Holmgren miss suddenly becomes another camera opportunity to catch Wemby's reaction. And those little moments can sometimes say more than a polished press conference ever will. Players can give respectful answers after games, but body language in the middle of competition is harder to package. When the same opponent keeps bringing out visible reactions, viewers are going to notice. But maybe the coldest part isn't even what Wembanyama has said about Holmgren. It's what he sometimes refuses to say. When directly asked about Chet in interviews, Wembanyama has occasionally handled the subject in a way that some rivalry watchers have compared to old-school psychological games, because sometimes refusing to even say your rival's name can make more noise than any insult ever could. He doesn't engage, he barely acknowledges it. He redirects, keeps it moving, and shuts the conversation down. Before an October 2024 game against Oklahoma City, Wembanyama reportedly wouldn't even say Holmgren's name during a pregame media session. He referred to the Thunder as a team and deflected questions whenever reporters tried turning the night into another personal Wemby versus Chet showdown. And when you stack that beside the no comparison quote, the ethical basketball comments, the argument about Chet benefiting from SGA's defensive gravity, and those visible on-court celebrations, fans started seeing something bigger. Instead of one random comment or one heated moment, it looked to some observers like a repeated pattern of competitive dismissal. Whether Wemby was deliberately playing mind games is impossible to know for sure, but the pattern gave people plenty to talk about. Basketball has seen this type of cold competitive energy before. The Kobe Jordan era had its own versions of elite players refusing to give another star extra respect while trying to prove everything on the court. Wembanyama's approach has created a similar vibe around this matchup. And whether it actually gets under Holmgren's skin is something only Chet can answer, because publicly he's kept things ridiculously controlled. Holmgren has been almost surgically diplomatic. When ESPN's Malika Andrews directly asked him about the rivalry, Chet said it had never been up to players or teams to declare rivalries and told her she was basically asking the wrong person. No trash talk, no dramatic response, just a clean dodge. But then Andrews asked whether Chet and Wembanyama had ever actually spoken, and his answer made the whole situation even more awkward. Holmgren said they had not exchanged a full sentence. He quickly added not to take that the wrong way and explained that they had simply never really crossed paths. That's wild considering how connected their basketball stories have become. On Paul George's podcast, Holmgren explained that he didn't want to enter matchups trying to turn them into something they weren't. And when discussing Wembanyama's dominance and ridiculous physical profile, Chet was genuinely complimentary. He said Wembanyama does things that other lineups simply can't replicate. His presence changes games, changes how teams play, and forces opponents to completely rethink their approach. Chet wasn't pretending Wemby wasn't special. He simply refused to publicly return the same sharp energy that fans believed Wembanyama had been sending his way. Depending on how you read it, that was either Chet taking the high road or staying extra quiet because he didn't want to give the story another headline. Either way, the contrast was impossible to miss. Wemby's comments could sound icy and dismissive, while Holmgren kept answering like a dude determined not to give anybody the viral quote they wanted. Bomani Jones put his own interpretation of the situation very plainly. While comparing this matchup to another major basketball rivalry, Jones said that Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren do not like each other and that everybody knows that. That's a strong statement. But from the outside, nobody can definitively prove these two personally hate each other. What can be documented are the comments, awkward interview moments, competitive reactions, and years of high-stakes basketball connecting them. Whatever label you put on it, there's clearly enough tension for every matchup to feel different. And part of what makes the actual basketball so nasty is that neither player presents a simple problem to solve. Wembanyama's defensive reach extends way beyond standing underneath the rim. He can switch on to smaller players, hedge ball screens, recover from ridiculous distances, and make somebody rethink a jumper from 15 feet because his wingspan can erase shooting windows that normally look wide open. His Defensive Player of the Year recognition reflected more than basic rim protection. It was about his ability to influence entire possessions and control huge sections of the floor. Then on offense, the problem flips. Wemby can score from nearly anywhere, create off the dribble, and punish traditional big men who are forced to chase him out toward the perimeter. Holmgren brings a different bag. His shooting stretches defenses and can drag opposing rim protectors away from the basket, creating valuable driving lanes for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. Defensively, Chet relies heavily on anticipation, timing, and positioning. And inside Oklahoma City's offense, His ability to work pick-and-roll actions as both a roller and a shooter gives defenses another headache. That's why this matchup looks like basketball's next evolution, staring directly into a mirror. Both are extremely tall players who refuse to live in the paint. They can shoot threes, move in space, protect the rim, and force traditional centers into uncomfortable situations. When Wemby and Chet guard each other, you're watching two versions of the modern big man blueprint trying to crack the same code. Then the 2025-26 season arrived, and everything got turned up. Oklahoma City finished with 64 wins as the defending champions. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had won back-to-back MVP awards. Holmgren became an all-star for the first time. The Thunder weren't just another contender. They entered the postseason, carrying the status of the Western Conference's established powerhouse. San Antonio, meanwhile, finished second in the West and went 4-0 against Oklahoma City during the regular season. 4 meetings, 4 Spurs wins. The defending champions couldn't solve Wembanyama's team during the regular season series, and that made the growing Wemby Chet storyline even harder to ignore. Holmgren averaged just 10.5 points on 39% shooting across those 4 losses, while Oklahoma City posted a combined -16 during his minutes in those games. Every result gave the rivalry another piece of evidence for fans to argue over. The Thunder had the championship resume, but against San Antonio, the matchup kept going sideways. Then came the Western Conference Finals. The biggest stage these two had shared in the NBA Game 1 was in Oklahoma City, and the defending champions had home court. This was supposed to be their chance to set the tone immediately. Instead, Wembanyama went completely off. He dropped 41 points, grabbed 24 rebounds, added 3 blocks, and powered San Antonio to a double overtime victory. Holmgren finished with 8 points and 8 rebounds. 1 game into the series, and the temperature had already jumped through the roof. The basketball world immediately framed that performance as Wembanyama finally flipping 5 years of competitive frustration on its head. The teenager who fouled out in Riga and had to sit there watching the other side celebrate was now the superstar delivering the monster performance, controlling the moment, and walking away with the victory. Same 2 names connected by history, but this time, Wemby was the one standing tall at the end, and the series only got crazier from there. Oklahoma City punched back by winning games 2 and 3, taking a 2-1 lead and reminding everybody why they were the defending champions. In Game 5, Holmgren responded with a solid 16-point, 11-rebound double-double as the Thunder protected home court. For a moment, Chet looked ready to shut down the growing criticism. But then came Game 7 in Oklahoma City, and this is the performance people couldn't stop talking about. With the defending champion's season on the line, Holmgren attempted only 2 shots. 2 shot attempts in a Game 7. He finished with 4 points, while Wembanyama scored 22 points across 42 minutes as San Antonio won 111-103. Then came another statement. Wembanyama was unanimously named Western Conference Finals MVP in his first postseason appearance. Meanwhile, the criticism around Holmgren got loud fast. Chet was heading into a 5-year, $239 million extension, and in the biggest game of the season, his offensive involvement had practically disappeared. Thunder coach Mark Daigneault publicly defended Holmgren and emphasized how important he remained to the organization. But a coach backing his player wasn't going to stop the outside questions. People wanted to know why. When Oklahoma City desperately needed another offensive option, Chet wasn't taking more responsibility. With Jalen Williams dealing with injuries and San Antonio putting serious defensive attention on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder needed somebody else to step forward. That created an opening for Holmgren to become a bigger offensive presence. Instead, he finished with those 2 shot attempts, and that number became one of the biggest talking points coming out of the series. And the symmetry of this story is almost too perfect. Back in 2021, Wembanyama delivered a ridiculous individual performance in the championship game in Latvia, only to watch the Americans celebrate afterward. 5 years later in Oklahoma City, Wemby was again delivering on a massive stage, but this time he walked away as the winner. The roles didn't simply change, they flipped in dramatic fashion. Same 2 players, connected since their teenage years, now facing each other with the entire basketball world watching. 5 years separated those moments, but the ending couldn't have looked more different. Of course, social media did what social media always does and turned every little detail into beef content. Wembanyama celebrating a missed Holmgren free throw. Suddenly it's proof they can't stand each other. A cold press conference response. Now it's psychological warfare. A huge play in Game 7. Within minutes, people are calling it the defining image of the rivalry. Those interpretations make for crazy headlines, but the full story has more layers. We can't know exactly what either player personally feels unless they say it directly. What we do have are real games, specific comments, visible reactions, major playoff moments, and years of competitive history connecting them. That's what separates this from a rivalry created entirely by television debates. And the 2026 series added another complicated layer because this wasn't 7 straight games of Holmgren getting embarrassed. Chet had legitimate moments. Game 5 was the clearest example, with 16 points and 11 rebounds in a Thunder victory. He was active, productive, and for that night, he pushed back against the idea that he couldn't respond. But Game 7 carried a different level of pressure. And fair or not, 2 shot attempts became the number everybody remembered. It represented the biggest concern people had been discussing throughout the series. When Oklahoma City needed another scorer to become aggressive, Holmgren sometimes appeared more hesitant than assertive. With Williams limited by injuries and San Antonio working to contain Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder needed another player to demand the basketball. Whether Holmgren's quiet Game 7 had anything to do with the pressure of facing Wembanyama specifically is impossible to prove. Defensive schemes, offensive roles, matchups, and game flow all matter. But because of their history, every quiet Chet performance against Wemby is naturally going to get examined under a microscope. That 5-year extension shows Oklahoma City has serious belief in Holmgren. But contracts don't stop debates. And now there's one question hanging over this matchup. Can Chet become the dominant player Oklahoma City needs when Wembanyama is standing on the other side and everything is on the line? Holmgren's response will write the next chapter. He's still young, already talented enough to reach all-star level, and playing inside one of the league's strongest organizations. The road forward isn't complicated to describe, even if it's extremely difficult to execute. Become more aggressive against elite defenses, stay involved when shots aren't falling, and don't allow the Wembanyama comparison to dictate how you play. Because the cleanest way to kill a narrative is through performance. Chet has the talent to change this conversation. The unanswered question is whether he can consistently do it against Wembanyama when the pressure is at its highest and every possession gets treated like another chapter in their rivalry. Wembanyama's challenge looks completely different now. His individual conversation is already expanding beyond Holmgren. Instead of only being compared with Chet, he's increasingly being measured against franchise expectations, championship standards, and the greatest players the game has produced. That's a completely different level of pressure. He won Western Conference Finals MVP in his first postseason run. He helped push San Antonio back to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2014. At that point, the conversation isn't simply, can Wemby beat Chet? It becomes, how far can Wemby take this? And that might be the craziest twist in this entire rivalry. Wembanyama spent years appearing reluctant to fully embrace the comparison, and the trajectory of their careers has only made that stance more fascinating. Chet remains a major talent on a powerhouse team, but Wemby's expectations have climbed into a completely different category. Still, Oklahoma City isn't disappearing. San Antonio may have won this chapter, but the Western Conference could easily bring these teams together again. And if that happens, every moment since 2021 comes right back into the conversation. The FIBA final, the Rookie of the Year debate, the interviews, the celebrations, the regular season battles, and now the playoff drama. The next time Wemby and Chet meet, viewers won't just see two 7-foot stars going at each other. They'll see two careers that have been connected since they were teenagers. They'll see years of comparisons, specific comments, awkward answers, huge performances, and competitive moments that neither player has ever fully unpacked publicly. That teenager who fouled out in Latvia while Holmgren and Team USA celebrated is now one of basketball's biggest stars. And the player who left that tournament with MVP honors is now facing the challenge of changing how this NBA chapter is being written. The gap between them will continue to be debated, but Chet still has opportunities to write his own answer on the court. And that's exactly why this rivalry isn't finished. There are too many receipts, too much history, and way too much talent involved for the story to end with one playoff series. Maybe Wemby keeps pulling away. Maybe Chet comes back with a statement nobody sees coming. Either way, the next matchup is going to have people watching every bucket, every block, every stare, and every post-game answer. So now I want to hear from you. Is Wemby versus Chet already one of the NBA's best rivalries, or is the gap becoming too wide to even call it a rivalry anymore? Drop your take in the comments and tell me who you think wins the next chapter. And if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with another NBA fan who needs to see the full Wemby Chet story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.